when I was young, when I was about 23 or 24, and I first started to do the work that culminated in my first book, that took me about 15 years. I had this, I outlined it in the preface of the book. I had this experience. I was starting to understand that it was really not a good idea to say things that weren't true, that you didn't believe to be true. And then, so I started thinking that through, and I was also starting to wrestle with this problem of malevolence at the same time. So those two things kind of got tangled together in some way. And I had this experience where I kind of split in some sense. And part of me was the old part that was talking. Like I was kind of a combative talker, and I'm still, I still talk a lot. It was always been part of my nature. But part of me split off, and it was watching the part that was talking. It was going, well, you don't believe that. That's not really true. That's not really your idea. It's like, you're just saying that to sound smart. You're just trying to win this argument. Really critical, eh? I thought, what the hell's going on? Either this part that's critical is correct, and the other part is not so good, or the part that's doing most of the talking is good, and what the hell's up with this critical part? I didn't know, and I thought, okay. But I did notice that there were some things the critical part wouldn't object to when I said, wouldn't object. And I thought, okay, what if I tried to not say anything that this critical part objected to? And so then I'd say something and it would object, and I think, no, I didn't get that right. And then I'd try to reformulate it and continued to reformulate it. And then finally, I got to the point where I stopped saying most of those things, and this critical part stopped objecting. And then I noticed that all of the things that I was saying that the critical part was objecting to were actually things that were making me weak.
Wow. And they're not full truths?
No, they weren't. They weren't at all. Like I thought, 95% of what I said was some sort of lie.
Right.
Whoa, 95%, man. That's a lot.
But that's similar to comedy. It's similar to comedy. In the beginning of comedy, it's like I'm just telling jokes to learn how to tell jokes a lot of times. I'm saying making up stuff. And then now I've gotten more authentic. And that's when things have definitely gotten better.
Right. Well, it is associated with that authenticity, right? To find your authentic voice.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the voice that you have a right to. Something like that. And that you also have taken responsibility for both of those
that's
things.
Interesting, though, a voice that you have a right to.
Yeah, well, because I had these ideas that I could say, but they weren't my ideas. I didn't have a right to them. I hadn't earned them. Even though I could formulate the ideas, I'd taken them from books, say.
Wow.
So I could be a mouthpiece for the ideas, but I didn't have a right to them. They weren't mine. I hadn't earned them.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I feel like there's a different type of person in the world that has had to take responsibility for themselves, and just had to earn their voice.
Right, then they have a real voice.
They have a real voice, and they're not just saying stuff. They're
not
just
braying like a donkey. That's what happens in Pinocchio, right?
Yeah.
He ends up transformed into a braying jackass because he isn't saying the truth.
Yeah.
Right, you're a braying jackass. It's like, well, you have to earn it. You have to rescue your father from the abyss in order to earn your voice.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's exactly right. Down into the depths, into
you have
the darkness.
to earn it. Get in there. Get in there. Let's hear. Yeah, this is good. Let's hear this.
And this is more of a comment for both of you, not a question.
I just want to call in and say thank you to both you gentlemen, because I'm at a better place now in my life than I've ever been. And those are big changes from the man that I was 6 months ago. And both of you were there when the gears started turning. You've been there throughout, and I'm making this call right now. So I just want to say thanks, man. I hope you guys continue to do what you do, to give people like me out here strength and guidance, and people like the man that I was 6 months ago, because I wasn't stagnant 6 months ago. I was getting worse, and I've done nothing but get better. So that gap just continues to widen as things go on. And I don't know, it's just such a powerful thing. It's just such a powerful thing that you two do, and I hope that you keep it up. I pray that you do, and God bless both of you. Thank you.
Hey, man,
nice guy.
That's a good video. That's a good video, man. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And
right,
he's right.
Great.
You don't stay stagnant, you get worse. Like a swamp doesn't stop rotting, right? The rot just gets deeper and deeper. There's no stagnant and staying the same. There's just stagnant and worse. So that was great. That's what it's like doing this tour.
Yeah.
And you could tell that he looked great.
He was sincere.
He looked great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was sincere, right? And so it's moving. It's that sincerity. You talked about your cells moving, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sincerity is moving. It moves you to a better place. That was great. And that's the sort of thing that people are telling me when I'm out on this tour. It's like,
And when the
you never
people-
get tired of that. It's like, yes, right on, man.
Right.
Things are better for you. Hooray.
And is there any way that you notice you were able to keep from that building up, like that landing in an educational place for you and that landing in an ego place for you?
Oh, well, I'm just like, well, I'm not attributing it to myself.
Right.
I'm attributing it to what, to the degree that I've been able to facilitate that. It's because I've had the privilege
Right.
of having the time to read all these great clinicians and to put that into practice. It's like the wisdom I'm not inventing the wisdom that helps people redeem themselves.
Right. You're just a Sherpa.
Yes, that's exactly it, to the degree that I can be, and so I'm not taking credit for this. I learned this from Carl Jung too. He wrote an essay called The Relation Between the Ego and the Unconscious, which is exactly about this. It's a hard essay to know what it's about unless you know what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what it's about. He said, don't mistake yourself for the wisdom. Don't do that. It's like, because the wisdom is eternal.
Right. The
Right.
wisdom will be here.
The wisdom was
and
here
it was
before you, and it will be here after you're gone. And maybe if you're fortunate, you can bridge the gap. You can tap into it. You can dip your cup into it. Maybe you can do that. But it's like you're the surfer and you're not the wave. It's
Right.
like you might be the cup, but you're not the well. And so you need to know that. And so when I hear this, I think, well, yeah, what I hear is, yeah, this information had the same effect on me. So yes, hooray. But I don't think, well,
like that.
man, I've done that. It's like, no, I'm pleased to be a part of it is what I think. I'm pleased to be a part of it. And that's definitely the case.
Yeah. What I hear is that you're grateful to be the cup. You remind yourself of that.
Well, and I'm so happy. I think when I hear someone say that, I think, okay, you're not descending towards hell. And that's great, because if you go to hell deep enough, you can take a lot of people with you.
Yeah.
So at minimum, this gentleman is much less likely to do reprehensible and terrible things. That's a big plus. But it also looks like he's on
doing
the
good
path.
stuff.
Yeah, he's on the path. He's doing more for himself, and maybe he's going to be good for other people too. It's like God only knows how that might manifest itself, because people are quite remarkable. And if they stop getting in their own way, it's like the sky's the limit, right? And really,
It really
truly,
is.
the sky really is the limit. We're
really
amazing
is.
creatures, man. God only knows what we could come up with.
Yeah.
I mean, look what we've come up with in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So, and who knows where we could go, especially if all of us were pulling together, man. Who knows where we could end up?
I love it. Nick, you want to play another one?
Dr. Peterson, I'm a big admirer of yours, and I really enjoyed your event at the Beacon Theater in New York City back in March. But my question to you is, how do you manage to keep your cool in confrontations and highly stressful situations? You're kind of like a Canadian psychology version of the Fonz, in my opinion. And one situation I would like to refer to is during the Monk debate, where Michael Dyson, I think his name is, he made that comment referring to you as a mean, mad white man. And, you managed to stay on topic, not let it, make you angry or anything. I'm sure there's things you wanted to say to him. You still managed to stay on topic and keep your cool. So, any advice on how to do that would be great.
That's a great question.
It's a great question.
When we get rattled, how do we stay cool
Yeah.
so we can stay on message and stay in direction?
Well, you have to kind of decide what you're aiming at, and I mean in a fundamental sense, because that helps you stay oriented. I'm not trying to bring excess damage into the world. And so partly what you do is when you're attacked is you can defend yourself with minimal necessary force. And I really mean it's a real art to use minimum force, and it works way better. It's a way more effective form of defense. And so, like, I didn't let what he said go unopposed. I said to him that there was no excuse to bring, like, he can call me a mean, mad man. That's fine, because maybe it's true, and he's certainly entitled to that opinion. But to add white to that just seemed to bring an arbitrary element of racism in, and so that's what I said, and that was a good enough defense. But also in those public fora, it doesn't hurt at all to let people expose their agenda. And so if you're attacked, you think, well, is this a good thing or a bad thing? It's like, well, it's an awkward thing, and it can be an aggravating thing. but it isn't necessarily a bad thing to let people who are attacking you for unwarranted reasons reveal their full agenda.
You can see their weapons then.
Well, yeah, and you can see them.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, what are you up to attacking me? Well, it's because you're bad. It's like, maybe go on with your attack.
Right.
Well,
Because
maybe it has
now
nothing to do with me.
Right.
And
Now
so-
you're learning a lot about me.
Yes, that's the question is, who is this attack about? Well, maybe it's about me. Maybe it's about you.
Yeah.
And so if that's public, it's like I'm willing, to the degree that I can manage this, I'm willing to allow the attacks to progress, because I'm hoping that they might be about the attacker and not about me. You know, and it's a hairy game in some sense, a high stress game, because there are things about me, you know, because no one's perfect, that's
Yeah.
for sure. And so some of the punches land, but most of the time, and this has happened over and over again, it's like, no, the attacks reveal more about the attacker than me.
Yeah.
And so that's been good. And so then that's a strange thing. It's like, well, why should I be thinking that this attack is bad? It's uncomfortable, it's stressful, and all of that. But some of the best things that have happened to me, let's say over the medium to long run in the last 2 years, have emerged directly from the most vicious and unwarranted attacks. It's like, well, no, they didn't use knives, so that's good, because
Right,
you don't recover from that. You know, so I know there's a limit to this sort of argumentation.